666.
4 foreign policy pluses. I'm doing political stuff. I got to do more social page, style page stuff. Anyway, this is important. In the category of positive signs regarding regional policy disputes, this past week was an encouraging one for Saudi Arabia, with movement on 4 fronts, starting alphabetically with Iran. So Kuwait and Saudi Arabia invited Iran to work together to demarcate the Dura offshore gas field, which lies adjacent to Iran's maritime zone. This is a small thing, but in the larger Iran-Saudi dialogue, which was started in 2021, was put on hold by Iran this past March. But I think it's a good gesture. Kuwait and Saudi Arabia feel they can work this gas field, not a problem. But they're invited Iran to come in and demarcate the area. So this is a small gesture, but it's a gesture. Next, Lebanon's Prime Minister Najib Mikati will visit Saudi Arabia during Ramadan. This following the return of Saudi Arabia's ambassador to Lebanon and the recent announcement of Saudi Arabia and France coordinating humanitarian assistance for Lebanon's hard-hit economy. Hezbollah still dominates Lebanese politics, but this is better than where it has been. They're trying to have some sort of rapprochement and get Saudi Arabia wants to be involved. There's elections next May. But anyway, the communication is better than not, and it's nice to see the Prime Minister coming to Saudi Arabia. Speaking of important people coming to Saudi Arabia during Ramadan, Turkey's Recep Erdogan is expected to visit during Ramadan as well. Continuing to de-escalate this conflict is critical. Turkey has discontinued its Khashoggi trial activities and needs Saudi investment and access to the Saudi market to help bolster the Turkish economy. This will not be a warm and friendly homecoming between Erdogan and MBS, but it just needs to be less antagonistic. So that's progress there. Fourth, and most important, movement on Yemen. First, there was a surprise 2-month truce between the Houthis and the Yemen government announced on April 1. This agreement's broad contours, which is halting the fighting, letting fuel ships into Hodeidah, and reopening Sana'a Airport, had been at the heart of UN mediation efforts since early 2020, but had been blocked by both or either side. This truce was also endorsed by the Saudi coalition. Now, I understand the distinction between the government of Yemen, the Houthis, and the Saudi coalition. Then, on April 7th, Yemen's interim president of a decade standing, Abed Hadi, and his government was replaced by a presidential council consisting of 8 men, all men, who represent anti-Houthi factions from both the north and the south of Yemen. Although it was positioned as Hadi making this decision, it is clear the Saudi coalition required it, as Hadi has little to no influence over the anti-Houthi campaign. Immediately after the announcement was made of Hadi ceding control to a presidential council, Saudi Arabia committed $2 billion and the UAE $1 billion to help stabilize Yemen's economy. All to the good. Hadi's, is dead wood, really. Presidential Council, we don't know what's going to bring, but it's a change. Obviously, $3 billion in inflows to help stabilize Yemen's economy is great. While the truce was a surprise and Hadi's removal widely welcomed, what happens from here is to be determined. UN envoy Hans Grundberg is pressing to make the ceasefire permanent and pushing for the convening of inclusive talks to end the conflicts. Saudi Arabia called on the new Presidential Council to begin negotiations with the Houthis to reach a, quote, comprehensive political solution, unquote. On the ground in Yemen, this may be an opportune time since the Houthi attempt to capture Marib, which they thought they would be able to achieve in late 2021, has been stymied in 2022 by UAE-aligned forces. This stalemate may contribute to a greater willingness by the Houthis to entertain a political solution. We've talked earlier on previous episodes about diplomacy breaking out, starting really with the Al-Ula agreement in January 2021. When Qatar was brought back into the fold. But Turkey is in the region and elsewhere. If they can find a resolution to Yemen, this would be groundbreaking. It would transform, I think, Saudi Arabia's outlook on the future and moving ahead with more important things, which is their economic challenges and their economic Vision 2030 goals.
So busy week for Saudi foreign policy. One thing that I think is interesting, and you mentioned Turkey, is the Turkey just transferred the Khashoggi case to Saudi Arabia. And I'm getting a lot of questions on my end. I'm sure you are too, Richard, as to why that is. And it sort of fits into this sort of new rapprochement you mentioned that's going on between Turkey and Saudi Arabia. Just very interesting.
It is. It is. Yeah, it's, Saudi Arabia is dinged, particularly by the U.S., for lack of transparency in terms of how this incident, this murder was handled. Turkey politicized it. I mean, they used it as a cudgel in many ways to just try and gain leverage. And this was a time when they were much more antagonistic and confrontational with the Gulf. And I think they've decided it's no longer to their advantage, so they're going to let it drop. Because obviously a trial of Saudis executed in Turkey was not going to be going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a policy thing that Erdogan thought was useful in his particular tiff with Saudi Arabia and MBS.
And he definitely milked it for all it was worth during the time. And I think it's also. Yeah, please.
Sorry. Yeah. So a lot of people, there's plenty of people in the U.S. to feel like the people who perpetrated the murder of Khashoggi have not been brought to justice. But this wasn't going to happen in Turkey anyway, and it was time to let that go and move forward, at least in terms of the Saudi-Turkish relationship.
Yeah, and the Dura gas field story is very interesting as well. Sort of the Saudis and Kuwait. I mean, both of them claim the whole field, but sort of using it as a interesting way to invite Iran to discuss, maybe possibly sharing it with them. I mean, they claim it as theirs, but it's an interesting, invitation, I guess, to Iran to sort of get in the mix there.
Yeah, as I said, it's a small gesture, but it's a gesture, and it's Iran expressed its annoyance with Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, saying, we're going to work this field and this is ours and we can do whatever we want. So Saudi Arabia and Kuwait have not backed off of that, and I don't expect they will. But come on over and let's talk.
Mm-hmm.
That's better than the alternative.
Certainly, and this is a bit of a sea change. I mean, if you put all these things together and you think about Saudi Arabia's foreign policy since the rise of King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, there haven't been a lot of clear victories. There have been some missteps, big and small. You mentioned the Qatari blockade. The Saudi Arabia's tiff with Canada, the war in Yemen didn't go as they thought it would. Just interesting to see things evolve, especially, and we're going to talk later here with Afshin Malawi, the way the Russian invasion of Ukraine has sort of set off a ripple across the world, not just in business and commerce, but also in foreign policy and the way countries rethink their position in the world. It's just very interesting.
Fascinating. And I expect Afshin to give us some real insight on this, because it's laid bare a number of questions and issues that have been dormant and needed to be brought forward, because they're real sticking points for a lot of these countries, Saudi Arabia in particular.